The West has been blessed with the presence of many foreign and exotic creatures hailing from the third world up to this point. I love trading away my rights, culture and wages in return for a magnificent cuisine now being available in a totally not a criminal front ethnic slop shop near me. But the West hasn't been graced by a creature more sweet and this lovely than the Indian. Listen, we're told that Indians are being airlifted into every Western country on the basis of their alleged superior skills and merit, so nobody should be surprised when the growing disdain towards them is also deeply rooted in merit. Indians will boast how they're outcompeting the white man and taking more and more positions of power in Western societies. But there are also a few things that the Indians would rather not speak about. Just one of those things being how long after white people are gone and replaced by Indian bugmen, there will still be remnants of the white inventive spirit still haunting the god-forsaken Indian subcontinent. The train, a white invention reaping a bloody harvest, maybe in a case of historical revenge.
The jig is up. The whole thing that they use to lull my generation and older to sleep, this racial guilt stuff, like you owe somebody something for being white, that's over and done with. Anytime you even open your mouth to do anything that's not derision, you're losing. But when an outsider comes here and starts throwing definitions at you, you're getting called a slur. How about this, though? You're Indian.
When talking about India and the third world in general, we're told the reason why the Ganges is a steaming pile of garbage is because of socioeconomic factors, poverty, and the inaccessibility of garbage disposal services and such. But when talking about why Indians are being airdropped into the West, no, it's not because of them being cheaper labor, no, we're told it's because they have a better culture and work ethic. So what is it? Socioeconomic factors or culture that decide? You want to see Indian culture? I'll show you Indian culture. They say that you are what you eat, and in this case, they're right. Indians are slop people. Everything they eat resembles some sort of shapeless goo. Even the act of eating itself is shapeless, as many of them don't even use cutlery and use their hands instead. The city landscapes Indians create also work towards reinforcing the image of slop maxing. There's this game you can play. Go on Google Maps, randomly pick any spot in India in Google Street View and try to find a spot where there's no trash present anywhere in the 360 view of the camera. Newsflash. It's impossible. Now, this isn't a unanimously Indian thing, but how is it they turn every body of water, artificial or natural, into a steaming pile of garbage each time they're allowed next to it for a prolonged period of time? What's confusing is how can they pollute the river Ganges so much if it's a holy river? White people in, for example, England will rally around keeping a small and irrelevant forest creek clean, stocked with fish and free of trash, while the literal Hindu holy river is treated like a garbage dump by everyone. How a nation treats its waterways is a litmus test whether they're an underdeveloped shithole or an, at least formerly, civilized country. And guess what? India has failed it. Have you ever heard of the Indian stare? Well, if you're a white or just foreign non-brown woman in India, you'd instantly know what that entails. Indian men are some of God's rapiest soldiers, and they will just openly grope and harass any woman, even and especially white female tourists, in broad daylight right in front of the main tourist attractions. You know, from a rational point of view, everything that exists has to have a reason as to why it exists. And you better believe that female-only trains in India have a reason as to why they exist. Hindus will say that I'm just seething about white women dating so many of them because of their superior totally Aryan genes and their dominant and athletic 5'5" stature, which, hate to break it to you, but Indians actually are consistently rated as the least attractive race by white women, and especially undesirable as rated by Indian women. God, imagine what they have to go through back in India to dislike their own men so much. Also, did everyone just forget how India faked a moon landing like a year ago and everyone just went along with it? It really is a testament to how obsessed with empty performative ritualism the Indian mind truly is. But here's the thing, the Indian mind, however not a place you want to go to, is our next stop. Here's a truth bomb. No Indian actually wants to be Indian. If given the opportunity to choose their race and culture, every Indian would choose to be 6'3" Hallstatt Norded and Swedish, while most of them are 5'6", skinny fat, and have that future mass grave occupant phenotype. That's why Indians try to trace back their lineage to Aryans so bad. And listen, I'm not saying that one phenotype or race is better than the other, because that would be incompatible with liberal programming and my brain just wouldn't allow for it. But come on, one of these phenotypes is objectively and plainly more enviable than the other. Let me put it this way, nobody would ever want to be Indian. Indians are a weirdly proud people, despite there not being much to be proud of in the first place. They all champion this third world nationalism, this blood connection with their people, identity and soil, and yet they flee their country. It's truly interesting how people from third world shitholes feel entitled to proclaim their pride and identity with their home country, but once they actually have to live there and breathe the same stench that is produced by their fellow countrymen, they suddenly don't feel so proud anymore. Why do we live in a world where the most civilized places are full of self-loathing liberal types, while the ugliest shitholes are overflowing with die-hard nationalists? But let's not jump the gun just yet, because Rajindihar from Brampton, Ontario really wants to make a point that Indians are outcompeting the white man intellectually, and that's why you're seeing them occupy more and more of the Western workforce, that the Indian is simply smarter, has got a better work ethic, and is more productive than the decadent white. First of all, the Indian men are outcompeting the white man in what? Well, you gotta give it to them that they actually are on average 24% more efficient in writing compilable code than Americans. But there's a hidden lesson in this little factoid in that I just made that up and it's the other way round. Wanna win big? Always bet on Indians underperforming in everything. Everything but causing insurmountable chaos and death on public roads. In reality, they are hired on the basis they can pay them up to 50% less than a native worker if they're an H-1B visa holder, and up to 1/15th of a native salary if they're working remotely from India. The funny thing being that mainland Indians are so cheap to hire via outsourcing that work visa Indians are complaining that their own countrymen are stealing their jobs. So this whole outcompeting the whites thing is just who can be a larger Zog slave to their corporate overlords and work for a lower wage. As proof of concept, notice how wages all throughout the tech sector have been taking a nosedive for the past few years, which when you tack onto that rampant inflation, you realize the wage drops are way worse than most think. Okay, but Indians and Elon Musk will rebuke by saying that India is just an untapped, endless wellspring of talent and ingenuity that has somehow managed to keep that inventive spirit sheltered for 3,000 years. And it's only on the basis of raw ability to do work better and more efficiently than the white man that they are flooding the West. If that's true, do 36,000 false university degrees being sold in India illegally by just one university mean that Indians are so smart and so hardworking that they can simply skip the boring rigmarole of actually learning stuff in college because they already know everything? In the US, for example, white STEM and especially IT graduates are unable to find employment despite there allegedly being a labor shortage. What that entails is that companies, in order to maximize profits for shareholders, are looking for people that will do the job for peanuts. And so they hire Indians. But someone might respond, the reason why Americans aren't being hired is because they aren't qualified and Indians are. This is an outright lie, as US STEM students are on average more competent than their foreign counterparts. Is this the famed colorblind meritocracy Elon Musk talked so much about? Vivek Anchor Baby Ramaswamy will tell you that Indians are superb software engineers, and possess a greater work ethic than white people. So really,
Riddle me this.
why have they not created a single good video game? You would think that the largest single nation of competent programmers would create at least one. I mean, countries with less than 6 million people have created really good games, and many of them at that, so why can't the largest population on planet Earth do it? And also, why is there a direct correlation between Indians becoming the CEOs of Silicon Valley tech giants and every app just going to shit? You see, Indians will talk about how there are more and more Indian CEOs in Silicon Valley, but none will mention how every service provided by them has been getting steadily worse. Somehow. I don't know how. It's truly an unsolved mystery as to why, but newsflash, evidence suggests Indians aren't brought into the West on the basis of merit. I know, crazy information out here, and their actual performance is similar at best, and usually poorer than that of a white man. What? What do you mean people from a country with the average IQ of 76 and the world capital of being run over by trains aren't the most competent workers in the West? Unbelievable. Here's a scary thought. All of the biggest right-wing Twitter accounts are actually run by Indians. It is such a plague that there has been devised an actual test, a ritual of sorts, to root out and flag every Indian masquerading as a white right-winger. If God forbid you suspect someone online is Indian, you just make them curse the Indian god Vishnu by name. If they do curse Vishnu, they pass. They're not Indian and most likely Pakistani instead. But if they refuse, it's an immediate red flag that your favorite based, trad, marble statue profile picture white nationalist just ate breakfast today with his brown Indian hands. But there's another way to tell if someone's Indian without even having to interact with them at all. Simply if the account is Zionist or strongly pro-Israel, there's a 95% chance it's an Indian LARPing as an Israeli. Indians simply love Jews, comparably to how Southern evangelicals do, to the point that they've managed to get the Free Palestine leftists to dislike them, which is crazy because those leftists will worship literally any brown person. Unfortunately for the Hindus, I'm afraid Jews don't love them back and actually despise them. But don't listen to me, let's hear what the big Jew himself and former Secretary of State for President Nixon, Henry Kissinger, has got to say. They are superb flatterers, Mr. President. They are masters at flattery. They are masters at subtle flattery. That's how they survived 600 years. They suck up. Their great skill is to suck up to people in key positions. There's a lot of truth to Kissinger's words, as Indians have been seemingly blessed with the perfect phenotype and cultural background deserved of someone built and created just for servitude. The skinny fat look, the low testosterone malnourishing vegetarian diet which makes all the supposedly Aryan warrior descended Indian men have on average a similar grip strength to an average Western woman. To add insult to injury, they have highest in the world levels of impotence. Indians truly are like eunuchs and servants manufactured by nature, ready to appease their Hasidim overlords, just like they did the British. I like to think that Indians are so refined in their servile nature that they just simply intrinsically know who to appease. They correctly noticed that the white man is being disposed of, and saw the Yiddish writing on the wall. It's almost a sort of logical equation. Whoever is being worshipped by the Indian is currently in charge of the world. There have been many tales of startups being run into the ground by an Indian working in HR, hiring only his family and other Indians, slowly replacing every competent and experienced person in the company with that are entirely unqualified for what they're doing. This is how you end up with Indians taking over entire companies one by one, simply through their nepotism, creating a sort of weird Theseus-ship paradox, where a company has every one of their workers replaced with clueless Indians. You might say that the West is currently falling to Indians who walk barefoot in the office and eat slop with their hands, that the West is falling to people that have public defecation beaches, to people that get run over by trains and have faked a moon landing. But you're wrong. The West has fallen once, to the people that are currently the most powerful in the world, that are actively trying to root out white people from positions of power and commerce. Who are they? I don't know. You might say, oh, here he goes blaming the Jews again, what a profound point he's making. Stop, pump the brakes. Why did your mind immediately jump to Jews when I brought up encouraging mass migration and having a political stranglehold over the Western elites. It's not the Jews, okay? It never is. It's the globalists, dude. It's the Soros Foundation. It's the bankers and financiers. It's the deep state, dude. It's the tech oligarchs. No, it can never be them. Get your head out of the conspiracies, chud. Remember, the good guys won World War II, and this is what winning looks like. My body is like a temple for my soul, and my mind is like an inner city school for 75 IQ black kids under the patronage of Martin Luther King. So let's not get too ahead of ourselves, lest we want to risk a chimp out happening from the information overload and the truth bombs being laid out here. So let us go step by step, put all the jokes aside and assess the situation. Are Indians smarter than the white man? No. Are Indians more specialized in relevant fields and better educated on average? Nope. Are they really coming to steal our women? Highly doubtful. And finally, are they more nepotistic and don't align with the blessed colorblind meritocracy? This one, yeah. Machiavelli wrote how one of the most effective ways to keep yourself in charge as a ruler is to create an aristocracy from scratch that owes their high position in society and wealth to your goodwill. Basically, slowly, bit by bit, replace the old noblemen with new aspiring ones by setting up the new ones with disproportionately more opportunities for growth and amassing wealth than the old. The new ones will remain obedient and loyal as gratitude, and the old ones won't even realize that they're being deposed until it's too late. So what's happening in the West nowadays? White people are being forced out of positions of influence and are being replaced by Indians. They're supposed to be the new zog-brained corporate middle management drone class in society, and they are the perfect match as you can pay them less, replace them with infinity other candidates, plus their entire kin is diagnosed with a clinical case of servile-mindedness. For the retards at the back, what's happening is the white man is falling victim to the political establishment desperately trying to build itself up on foreign support. You know, Aristotle predicted all of this. The tyrant is also inclined to cultivate the company of foreigners and eat with them rather than with citizens of his own state, for the latter he sees as potential enemies and the former as not making rival claims. At the end of the day, yeah, we're being outcompeted. Outcompeted in being stinky slaves, in being paid less and less. After all, the tech sector, which is importing the most Indians, is seeing the highest ever recorded salary drops and turnover rates, which is exactly the desired effect. When will the Indians realize that we're nothing more than cannon fodder in a microeconomic scheme to decrease wages, increase shareholder value, and thus keep the fake economy afloat? But remember one thing, none of this would be happening if it wasn't for governments that turned the West into an economic opportunity zone for the third world. As the old passage goes, people who are doing this to us have names and addresses. They also have one common denominator, but I can't quite put my finger on what it might be. Nobody likes Indians because they act like leash dogs for the regimes that imported them here, being from such a weird and backwards place that they feel it is gratifying and a sign of their supremacy, that they're so collectively servile and underdeveloped that the most treacherous and ineffective governments in human history are making them their beloved company. I like how Indians think it's a point of pride to be a servile class of leash dogs for the most degenerate and repulsive ruling elite that has ever existed. I don't know if you've noticed, but I am not a big fan of their culture, but I have nothing against them living on their own land and growing and developing there. Not that there's a high chance of that happening anyways. And here's a message to all the Indians that want to assimilate and actually don't like their culture at all. I don't want you anywhere near the West, but I don't hate you. I don't think Gurpreet from Calcutta deserves hate. Hate is a strong word, and I reserve it exclusively for the people that import foreigners into the West. Not a single Indian would be treading on our soil if it wasn't for the globalists. And before someone questions my opinions on the subject of Indians, first of all, I now declare the whole video a joke, thus your valid criticism is now seething and coping at a rage bait. Sorry, that's just how it works. And second of all, we have to all own up to the fact that white people have grown so soft, disjointed and docile but you can just replace us with any sizable enough group and we won't say a thing because only white people are high trust enough to believe in a colorblind meritocracy. White guys literally assault and kill one another over goy ball slop and engage in extreme tribalism, but not for their people when they're being replaced, no, but for a black guy with a ball, which says enough about how unfit for reality the children of Yaqub unfortunately are. Unless white people grow a racial spine, we'll be like the many other native groups that failed to catch on to reality and just disappeared. White people have failed to realize that current society is geared towards a scammy, cheating Indian with false degrees and with strong familial bonds. Quick question, why should a white person respect a society that is trying to replace them? This chivalric, noble, high-trust code that white people extend to everyone, even foreigners, is out of the picture. The boomerish model of doing simply what is traditionally acceptable and legal in life is over, and unless you want to have an Indian boss soon above you, you better start taking advantage of the system. Go lie in your CV, do it now. And the Indians, they do have a point. We have to collectively stop whining and start screwing over the elites that have been ruining and parasitizing the West for so long. But imagine this for a moment, a race of people with a high in-group preference and scammy temperament of an Indian combined with the intelligence of a white guy. That group of people would really be unstoppable.